Hi everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escoffier Online, and tonight I'm going to be making the Flourless chocolate cake assessment, which the Flourless chocolate cake and the healthy blueberry muffins are the last two assessments in the program. But don't be sad when you finish them up. We're not saying goodbye. We're still going to be here for you. You can keep in touch. You have my email, you have my phone number. You can send me some of the photos of the recipes that you made from the recipe database, or even some of your own recipes. Please keep in touch and let me know how you're doing. So don't be sad. Be happy when you're finished with the program. And don't forget about us. Keep in touch. We're all friends. We're all in this together. So knowing that, let's get started with the assessment. I have my sanitizing solution in the bucket with the rag or in my spray bottle, and I cleaned my table before and I'm going to be cleaning it afterwards. So keep this handy, and remember, if you're just starting your assessments, be sure this is in the assessment photo somewhere with the mise en place in the background off to the side somewhere, just so we can see that you're practicing your good sanitation habits. And for home use, you can use a solution of vinegar and water. And then when you're in a commercial kitchen, just check with your state regulations and they'll let you know what solution you need to use. Knowing that, I'm going to tuck this under my table and we'll get started. So the Flourless chocolate cake, again, is just a few simple ingredients, and it's something that's going to wow your friends and family. They're going to be really impressed with you making this very rich cake that's so simple and is good for any of your family or friends that are on a gluten-free diet because there's no flour in it. And there's just eggs, sugar, cocoa, and a little bit of sour cream in the ganache icing. So let's get started. First, we're going to be starting our egg whites on the machine. And I have these at room temperature, and I'm just going to be adding half of my sugar. And we're going to be mixing these to a soft peak. Maybe. There we go. So, like I said, we're going to be mixing these to a soft peak. I'm going to put this on about medium-high. And we're just going to leave this work on its own. And then we're going to take the second half of the sugar and we're going to mix it with the egg yolks. And with the egg yolks, you're just pretty much creaming the two together. You can whisk them. It's just going to get maybe a little bit lighter in color, but you're not really worried about whipping this because it's a dense cake and you're whipping the egg whites. So I'm keeping an eye on those. So they mix to a soft peak. You don't want to mix them dry because they just deflate and they almost crumble in the mix, and you'll see little white specks. If you have a lot of white specking in your mix when you're finished, you'll know that you mixed your egg whites too dry. And then just the next time, keep an eye on them and take them off a little bit sooner. So while we're waiting for the egg whites, does anyone have any questions? I know we're just starting out, but let me know if there's anything that I can answer for you. These flourless chocolate cakes are also nice if you put a little splash of rum or amaretto or even the frangelico in these. And you can also flavor them with the extracts, the peppermint, the coconut, the orange, and even the lemon. But for your first assessment, go ahead and make it exactly as the recipe states, and you'll have it under your belt, and then you can make a lot of different variations with these recipes. This is wonderful for the holiday. Everyone loves flourless chocolate cake. It seems like you say flourless chocolate cake and everyone just says, wow. So you'll be sure to impress your friends and family. The cake that we're making today is going to be made in the 8-inch pan, and I've lined it and sprayed it. It's ready to go. But keep in mind too, you can make these in a little bit flatter, longer pan, and they're going to be a little bit thinner. You can finish them the same way, and you can cut them as bars and put them out on a little sweet table that you're having if you're having friends over. And we have a question.
Could you repeat how many eggs and how much sugar
Sure. For this recipe, there are 6 eggs and I separated them ahead of time. So I have 6 yolks and 6 whites in the mixer. Our whites are starting to come up. I'm going to turn this up a little bit higher. And for our sugar, we have 4 ounces of sugar. And for our cocoa powder, we have 2 ounces of cocoa powder. And we're going to be using 7 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. And we're going to have the recipe posted on our Facebook page so you can easily check it out there tomorrow. So our whites are starting to get a little bit thicker. And I'm just going to let these go until they're a nice soft peak. And I've got my egg whites and my sugar. And once my egg yolks and my sugar. And once my egg whites are ready, I'm going to pull them off and then we'll go ahead and incorporate the rest of the ingredients. We have another question.
What would be good to put on top of it? Maybe a sprinkle of icing sugar and decoration garnish, or perhaps fruit?
The question is, what's good to put on top of this cake? After you have the ganache on it, you can just let your imagination go wild. Sprinkles are really nice. I recommend if you're using sprinkles to go ahead and sprinkle them on when your ganache is still a little bit soft, and then they'll stick and it's just going to look better like they're part of the cake. For the holiday season, if you'd like to make a peppermint version, you can put crushed up peppermint on top. That's really nice. And fruits are nice too. But be mindful if you're going to be putting some fruit on the cake, don't leave it sit too long because the fruits have a lot of water in them and they could drip on the cake or on the side of the cake. So that's something that you want to put on more towards the end when you're ready to serve it, except for raspberries or blueberries. They don't have a lot of liquid in them and those will hold up a little bit nicer on top of the cake. You can put a little whipped cream. You can even do buttercream from your first assessment. So really anything wherever your imagination takes you. And it's just a reflection on you and your style, how you decorate your cakes. So knowing that, we're going to go ahead and finish this off. We're going to be adding the cocoa powder to the egg yolk mixture. And I've got a few little lumps in the bottom here, and I'm just going to go ahead and push these through. And then we're going to whisk this together, and then we're going to add the chocolate. When I'm doing this mix, I like to make sure that I make the mix after I get my egg whites whisked, because it seems to get a little bit thicker as it sits and it could seize up on you. So I'm going to grab my chocolate off the stove. Where I melted this earlier, and this is just semi-sweet chocolate, 7 ounces, and I'm going to go ahead and add it to the mix. And this is a really nice recipe. I think you'll like it. I think you'll be using it for a long time in the years to come for your friends and family. And now we're going to gently fold in the egg whites. What I'm going to do is take a little bit in the beginning and just get the mix started. I'm going to kind of almost temper these together. So this mix with the chocolate and the egg yolks and the sugar and the cocoa powder, it can get a little thick. So you're just going to want to start it out with a little bit of egg white in the beginning. And I'm just kind of gently folding it from the bottom, bringing it up to the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and pour in the remaining egg whites and just fold them all the way through. Clean off our table a little bit. Oop. This chocolate, it just seems to jump out at you sometimes. So I'm just going to gently fold these through I'm just going down to the bottom and bringing the mix up to the top. The chocolate mix kind of settled in the bottom. And this is going to bake in an 8-inch cake pan at 350 degrees for about 35 minutes. You'll be able to feel when it's done. The center is going to spring up. It's going to feel done. And this cake too, you can check with a toothpick. If your toothpick comes out clean, you know it's well done. So like I said, you can make this in a shallower form and make it into a bar. It's just a nice mix. You'll be using this a lot in the years to come. And this is just a very typical flourless chocolate cake recipe. Sometimes you'll see them later on and they'll include butter in them too, but it's typically the eggs are separated, the whites are whipped separately, and it's folded together just like this. So I'm pouring it into my pan. And then we're going to go ahead and bake this at 350 for about 35 minutes. When you get it in the pan, if you see any egg white or anything, just go ahead and swirl it all in, and we're going to pop this in the oven. So I have a cake that I made earlier, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish that with some ganache. I like to ganache my cakes on a pouring rack in case I have any excess that falls down. It's going to fall down rather than foot on the bottom of the cake. And with this flourless chocolate cake, it's very typical for these cakes to sink in the center. If your cake sinks like this or more or less, it's just very typical. And sometimes they crack a little bit too. That's just very characteristic of the flourless chocolate cake. So don't be alarmed if you see this, just kind of work around it. And it's just always not the prettiest cake. And if you don't want to use ganache on this cake in the future, you can easily just powdered sugar it. That's a really nice touch for something like this. So we're going to go ahead and make our ganache. And this is a different ganache than what we're used to in the course so far. This ganache is going to be melted chocolate with some sour cream mixed in it. It's a really nice flavor. It's a really rich ganache, and the sour cream gives it some added depth, and it gives it a little bit of tanginess too. You're going to like this a lot. You'll be enjoying this one too for the years to come. So let's go make our ganache on the stove. So I've got my chocolate melting, and we're just going to go ahead and finish this off. We're just going to mix the chocolate a little bit more. And then we're just going to go ahead and add our sour cream. And we're just going to be mixing this over the heat until it's well incorporated and it becomes just a little bit thin. So you'll have to let me know how you like this ganache recipe.
How much chocolate, how much sour cream, Chef?
The question is how much chocolate and how much sour cream in this recipe. It's 5 ounces of chocolate and 5 ounces of sour cream. And once again, it's the semi-sweet chocolate. You can use any semi-sweet chocolate for this recipe, whichever you like. If you like the couvertures that are a little bit of a higher percentage, that are a little bit more bitter and have a little bit more depth to them, that's okay too, or just your basic semi-sweet chocolate. So we're just going to let this warm up a little bit. This ganache is a little bit more spreadable than the other ganaches that we've used, but it's really nice for truffles. You're going to enjoy it a lot. It's a good thing to have. The question is, will this recipe work with Splenda? I believe it will, but the thing is you're going to have some sugar in your chocolate, so you're going to have to do some research on the variations, but the Splenda guidelines recommend that you can use cup for cup when it comes to Splenda versus sugar. So I think you'll be okay with your egg white and egg yolk mixture, but you're going to have to do some research on what to do about the chocolate. Maybe you can use an unsweetened chocolate and then do a little bit of a variation with the Splenda. So this ganache is starting to loosen up nicely. It's nice and shiny. We're going to take it off the heat and we're going to go ahead and put it right on our cake. So this is going to spread really nice on the flourless chocolate cake. I'm just going to pour the whole amount right onto the cake. And then we're just going to carefully spread it with our spatula. We're going to be kind of pushing it over the side a little bit so we can spread it around the sides too. And this cake is cooled completely. I wouldn't do this on a warm cake because it's just going to melt the ganache and it's going to take a lot longer to set up. So this cake, I made it earlier. It's at room temperature. And I'm just carefully going around the sides, just kind of spreading that ganache that I pushed over the edge. So don't worry if you don't ice it perfectly. It's not going to be noticed at all.
Got a question, Chef.
Yes, and we have another question.
Can I use agave solution? agave solution?
I'm not sure what that is. We have a question that I don't know the answer to. So we're going to, we'll write it down and I'll get back to you on the answer. So I'm just going around the side of the cake and I'm just creating a smooth edge. And then I just have a little bit of a lip that I'm just going to kind of bring inward. And like I said, this cake is just not really going to be a perfect cake because it dips and it cracks, but it's going to be beautiful whatever you do. Don't even worry about it. It's chocolate. Everyone loves chocolate. So I'm just going to take the cake comb from the toolkit and I'm just going to carefully make some lines kind of swirled around. Since this cake dipped in the center, I'm not really able to go straight across, so I'm just kind of doing some swirling. And I'm just creating a little bit of texture on the top. So this is our flourless chocolate cake. And I've made one earlier that's completely set up, so we're going to set this one aside and go ahead and cut that one. And we have another question.
Can I cut the cake in half and place the filling in the middle?
The question is, can the cake be cut in half and place the filling in the center? It's not as pliable as a regular cake that has flour in it, and it doesn't really have the structure, so I don't recommend doing that. But if you'd like to fill the cake, go ahead and make 2 separate cake pans. Just divide your batter in half and use 2 of your 8-inch pans, and then you can go ahead and fill it like that. And a really nice filling is raspberry jam or just ganache for the classic soccer tour. And we have another question.
Is the offset like you're using in the toolkit?
I'm not using the offset. The question is am I using the offset from the toolkit? I just used a straight spatula, which is in the toolkit, and I also use the cake comb, which is also in the toolkit. It's a little dirty, and I just used the small side. You have the side with the pointy edges, and then you have the square side, and then you have the baby edges. I used the bigger pointy edges, but you can use whatever you like. The square side's really nice too. I just wanted to add some texture to the top of the cake, and you can even ice it just plain if you'd like to. So let's grab that other cake and go ahead and cut it. So this is the cake that I made earlier. And this one didn't quite dip as much in the center. It has a little bit of a smaller dip to it, so I was able to do some straighter lines. Sometimes they dip a lot, sometimes they don't. I guess it just depends on how the cake feels that day. With flourless, one never knows. So I have my bucket of, well, my container with my hot water, and we're gonna go ahead and cut a piece of the cake, and we're gonna do a little plate up. Just gonna cut a wedge. And this is a denser cake because it has no flour in it, so it's gonna be a little bit richer, and you don't need a very big piece at all. Ice cream and sorbet also complement this cake very nicely. It's a little stuck. I'm sure I'll get it out in just a second. And before I finish the cake, I took the paper off the bottom. You're going to want to make sure that you do that because it's going to be a lot easier for you to cut the cake and it won't get stuck to the paper on the bottom. If you forget, it's okay. You can still get it off. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult. So this is a nice piece of the flourless chocolate cake, and as you can see, like I said, it's a little bit denser cake, but everyone that you make this for is going to be sure to love it. And you can garnish this with whatever fruit garnishes that you like, or like I said, even some sorbet or some ice cream goes really nice with this cake. So we're just going to be putting some strawberry slices on the cake. We're just going to put a few on the top. And then we're just going to kind of go along the edge. And I'm not going to be using the rounded part of the strawberry, only the flat part. And I'm just kind of making a little row. It's a nice little touch. And this is where you can be using some of the sauces from your earlier assessments. I've got some raspberry sauce, and remember the raspberry sauce freezes really nicely. You can just pull it out of the freezer and use it when you're ready to. And we can just put a little raspberry sauce on the plate, which you can't go wrong with raspberry sauce. Everyone loves it. And when you're plating desserts at home or in the kitchen, if you get any dribbles, just go ahead and wipe them off. It's just going to make your plate look a lot cleaner. And I've just got some caramel sauce that I'm just going to dab around the sides. You can use chocolate. You can also use your vanilla creme anglaise. And we're getting ready to wrap up for today. So if you have any questions, please ask them now. And this is our flourless chocolate cake assessment. And we have another question.
How many ounces of liqueur would you use if you had?
The question is, how many ounces of liqueur would you add? For a cake this size, I would say to go ahead and add a half of an ounce. And you should be fine with that, or maybe 1 tablespoon. It'll give it a nice flavor and just a little bit different taste to it. Creme de menthe is also nice to use in a cake like this too. So keep all of those in mind. And thanks for joining me today. And before I go, I want to mention the school trip to France again, which is going to be taking place in mid-October. Hope that you can join the school on the trip. It's a very nice trip. You're going to be staying in the town of Nice, and you're going to visit Escoffier's home, which is now a museum with some beautiful sculptures, some sugar sculptures, and some chocolate sculptures. And from there, everyone will be going over to Paris. And it's a beautiful city. There's a lot of architecture. There's wonderful pastry shops and a lot of wonderful shopping for kitchen gadgets too. So keep the trip in mind. It's not too late to register to go. And we have another question.
A couple of people say they didn't get the spatula or cake comb in their tube kit. Who should they contact?
Oh, okay. There's another question about the spatula and the cake comb and the toolkit. The cake comb is in the toolkit. It's in the large toolkit. It may not be in the smaller starter one that some of you have gotten, but you can just easily purchase the larger toolkit by calling technical support at 877-452-5489. And you can purchase a larger toolkit from them. And the spatulas are also in the larger toolkit too. So I hope that you like the flourless chocolate cake for today. And if there's no more questions, we're going to be saying goodbye till next week. And have a great evening. Thanks for joining me. Try to make this cake for your friends and family. They'll be completely impressed when you say flourless chocolate cake. Trust me, it's an impressive word. So enjoy it, and we'll see you next week. Bye.